Squid Game Season 3 promised so much, and the trailer delivered. After seeing this, I have only one question to ask.
아직도 사람을 믿나?
Now honestly, this trailer was intense, and it was perfectly executed. They showed us just the right amount of scenes to capture our interest, but not enough to spoil anything major. And that final piece of dialogue at the end, pure cinematography. Here's my breakdown of the trailer and the newly released photo, so make sure to stay until the end of the video. We have a lot to cover. The trailer confirms that the 5th game is jump rope. Apparently the leaks were right about both games. To be honest, I'm a little disappointed here, but it is what it is. I'll use the same style I used when I broke down the teaser video, focusing on each part of the trailer, and I'll start with the most important one, the jump rope game. As I said before, this is most likely the 5th game, and let me tell you, this short sequence brought a smile to my face. It seems like Player 100 won't be playing another game after this one. I was thrilled to see all the O players with that terrifying look on their faces. It's the face of realization. The moment they understand, they're not making it out alive. They finally grasp the true nature of Squid Game and the brutality it's capable of. It's quite poetic, if you ask me. These were the same people who pushed so hard to continue the game, and now they realize their decision is leading them straight to death. I think it perfectly parallels real life, showing how every action has consequences and how one small decision can ruin your entire life, like drinking a beer, getting behind the wheel, and ending up in prison. Playing one more game didn't sound so bad, until they realized it would be the last game they ever played. We're also seeing this floral pattern multiple times, first on Junhi's legs and later again on the ground. But let me tell you, Netflix had already dropped an early hint about this game when they first released the Season 3 poster. We can see the same floral pattern and 2 shadows, one belonging to Junhi and the other to Chul-soo. When that poster was first released, a lot of people theorized that the floral design had something to do with the 2 doll games. But here's something that becomes obvious now that we've seen the trailer, and no one noticed it back then. This photo actually reveals something about the game mechanics. The fact that we can only see the doll's shadows might indicate that the game takes place on a very high platform. That would explain why their shadows are cast so clearly on the floor. Moving on, we now have confirmation about several players surviving the 4th game. Besides players 353, 100, 96, and Minsu, who we already knew made it through, we now also have confirmation that players 336, 442, 39, 192, 333, 222, and 124 survived as well. Now let's talk about how this game might unfold. I think this is best explained by a YouTube comment made by Do Won. He pointed out that the game appears to be inspired by a traditional Korean children's game called Kamaya Kamaya, which translates to Little Friend, Little Friend. This lines up perfectly with the song we heard playing during the trailer. Who is there? Your little friend. While playing this game, players are likely required to perform small tasks in sync with the lyrics. Commands like turn around or touch the ground. Again, this fits well with the trailer, because we all know it wouldn't be as simple as just jumping over a rope. So a big shout out to Do Won for spotting this. I brought this theory to my Discord group, and one of the members pointed out a few details I had missed. Shout out to Andruxi for clarifying things. He explained that Komaya Komaya is actually the name of the song, but the real name of the game is Julneomgi. He even translated the lyrics for me. Julneomgi is basically the Korean version of Simon Says, and when I googled Julneomgi, I came across a Wikipedia article about a traditional game called Juibul Nore. According to Wikipedia, this game is played during the first full moon of the lunar calendar, which is a national holiday in Korea. It's a time when fires are lit on farmlands to exterminate harmful insects and rats by burning away their habitat. Exterminating harmful insects and rats, that purpose sounds eerily similar to the ideology of Squid Game, doesn't it? In the eyes of the VIPs, all the participants are considered societal trash, the rats of Korea. So I believe this game symbolizes that belief perfectly. It's the VIP's twisted way of cleansing South Korea of what they view as parasites. This might also tie into the symbolism of night versus day. The game seems to be played at night, which matches the tone and setting of the playground in the trailer. The players starts from the night and finish on the day, meaning they survived the night, the cleansing, and they are now into the light. We also see brief glimpses of how the game plays out. The railroad lights turn from red to green, and we see one player get hit by the rope. Again, I think this supports the little friend theory. I believe the actions must be performed during the green light phase, and the player who gets hit was probably caught mid-action. He didn't have enough time to jump after finishing a command. When the red light is on, you can't move. I also believe the rope itself moves while the light is red, approaching the player. If the player panics and jumps too early while the light is still red, even if they successfully dodge the rope, the guards would still kill them for moving at the wrong time. Another interesting detail I noticed about this game is that the railroad light appears to be only on one side, the side where Junhi is standing. In this short sequence, we can clearly see the railroad in the background, along with what looks like roadblock signs. Here's a close-up. Notice how the pole is fully painted in black. Now compare that with the opposite side of the playground, where Cheol is located. In that shot, there's no black pole visible at all. Based on the direction the players are facing, it seems the challenge is to move from Junhi's side toward Cheol's. That would place the railroad light behind you. I think this adds an extra layer of difficulty to the game. Possibly you're not allowed to turn your head to check the light. If so, that would drastically affect the strategy and tension. I believe this small detail plays an important role in the game mechanics, and we'll understand its full significance when Season 3 is released. It looks like this game has already claimed a lot of victims, and it definitely gives me Glass Bridge 2.0 vibes. Based on the trailer, it seems that so far, no one has successfully completed the challenge, so it's a fitting choice for the 5th game. Brutal, stressful, and designed to guarantee that only a few players make it to the final round. One more detail I want to point out is that there's only one rope. I originally thought there would be two, but nope, just one. And based on the playground setup, the rope doesn't spin in a full circle. Instead, it swings left to right, like a pendulum, without any pauses. Finally, the trailer pauses quite a bit to focus on some of the fallen players, which makes me think those deaths are significant. A lot of people in my Discord server pointed out that one of the bodies appears to be the shaman lady, based on the shape of her head and hairstyle. Also, another player who wouldn't survive this challenge is player 100. Another big discovery comes from Dangi, who spotted Namgyu among the dead players. We already saw a brief shot of Namgyu in the trailer where he's looking down, visibly terrified. After the bathroom fight, Namgyu's trousers had a very distinct blood pattern, and that exact pattern seems to match the pants of one of the dead players. Not only does the blood placement line up, but it's also on the same leg, making it highly likely that the body is his. Another major finding came from one of our Discord members, NPECE. In the teaser, there's a short clip showing players walking up a staircase. Among them, the main focus is on a player with his jacket tied around his waist. He appears to be injured and is using the railing to help himself climb. If we zoom in on him, we can make a pretty good guess that this is Namgyu. The hairstyle matches, and we can partially see his player number, which begins with a 1, possibly confirming it's him. But the most intriguing detail, it looks like Namgyu changed his vote to an X. There's a tiny red badge visible on his player jacket, indicating he voted to stop the game. And in the scene where Geumja is begging to end the game, if we pause and zoom in on the lineup of X voters, one silhouette strongly resembles Namgyu. His player number is 124, while Geumja is 149, so it makes sense that we'd see him cast his vote before her. Based on all this, I believe Namgyu survived the 4th game, but was badly wounded. That's likely why he chose to vote for ending the game. Unfortunately, the vote resulted in continuing the competition. The scene where we see the players walking up the stairs is likely right before the 5th game. This would explain why Namgyu is later seen crawling on the bridge and looking down, because deep down, he knew he wouldn't survive what came next. Huge thanks to everyone who contributed to this discussion in the Discord server. You all helped me shape this script, so shout out to Player226, Vozd, and the Squid Emoji, Freaking Wizard, and Blocksman. I'm sorry if I forgot to mention anyone by name, but thank you all so much. If you want to join the conversation, I'll drop the Discord link in the description. Now, the last thing I want to point out about the jump rope game is this moment here. It looks like the players are training themselves, trying to see if they can actually do the challenge. It's a small but powerful moment, showing just how intense this game is. The fact that they're practicing in advance really tells you how brutal this round will be. But now let's talk about the 4th game, because I found some crazy details that I still can't wrap my head around. First off, it looks like my theory about teams starting from different locations was correct. It appears all the blue team players start from this point. We can clearly see multiple passages, along with stairs leading both up and down. But the most interesting thing about this photo isn't the layout, it's who we see at the starting point of the game. Netflix tried to hide this, but I spotted it. If you pause the video and zoom in on the player standing near the shaman lady, you'll see that it's none other than Geumja. But how? We know she was originally on the red team, and now she's wearing a blue vest. Even more puzzling, Young-sik, who we know was on the blue team, is missing from this shot entirely. This opens up 2 possibilities. 1, this game might be played in multiple rounds. Or 2, players may have had the chance to switch teams at some point. Either way, this twist raises some huge questions about how the game mechanics work in this round, and I'll be diving even deeper into that. Another big detail we can spot is that Geumja still has her hairpin at the beginning of this game. This pretty much debunks the theory that she gave her hidden knife to her son for protection. We also see her later, after the game, crying her heart out with her hair untied. I strongly believe this means she ends up using the knife herself to survive, and that her son dies. The emotional breakdown likely stems from guilt. She might blame herself for switching teams with him, thinking that if she hadn't made that decision, he might have lived. We'll explore this in more depth when we analyze the dorm scenes later. Now, about the red team. I believe each red player starts from a different room. We get 2 close-ups, one of Ma Yoon-gi and another of player 203, which seem to show them waiting before the game begins. Then we see how the game unfolds, and it confirms many of our earlier theories about the blue team's objective. We predicted they'd start in a separate area and need to find the correct door to survive. All other doors likely lead to wrong destinations, maybe even back to the maze. There's a quick shot of Daeho opening a door that leads to nothing but a deadly drop back into the maze. I'm 100% certain someone will die that way, pushed straight through a trapdoor. If you haven't read the article where Hwang Dong-hyuk talks about the final season's themes, I highly recommend it. He revealed that Season 3's games are designed to bring out the bottom parts of human nature. He also said, that is why in Season 3, I decided to introduce games that could really infuse fear in people with sheer height. And that's exactly what we're seeing. Both the 4th and 5th games are deeply rooted in height-based fear. Even people who aren't afraid of heights would feel unsettled. Combine that with the promise of betrayal and psychological twists, and this 4th game is shaping up to be darker than anything we've seen so far. Game of Thrones would look tame compared to this. One surprise from the trailer is how much screen time Hyunju gets. It makes me think she's going to be way more important than we first assumed, and honestly, she deserves it. It also looks like she found the correct room based on the golden lighting that floods in when she opens the door. Compared to Daeho's scene, where his door leads back to the maze, this lighting clearly signals that she's on the right track and heading towards safety. She also seems to be involved in several fight scenes during the game, and her military background definitely plays a role here. The most intense fight scene? That one, where she throws a red player over her shoulder. Netflix tried to trick us by first showing a shot of player 226, then cutting to the fight scene, making it look like he's the one being thrown. But I was skeptical from the start. The hairstyle didn't match 226. The player who does match that hair is player 007. We already know he wears a red vest. But here's the giveaway: the glasses. When I looped the video and slowed it down, you can clearly see something flying from the red player's body after he hits the ground. And if you zoom in, it's not a knife, it's a pair of glasses. That's the final clue. I believe Hyunju fights player 007, darkest season yet, remember? The bottom parts of human nature. Now think about the emotional fallout this would have on Gihun. It makes perfect sense that she's seen breaking down in the teaser. If her son dies and her friend ends up killing him, the weight of it all could completely shatter her. I'll talk more about this emotional angle when we get into the dorm analysis, but needless to say, things are going to get really heavy. Would Hyunju actually kill player 007 though? That's the real question. We have another photo showing young Sik in the maze, and take a look at him. His glasses are missing one lens, and the other is cracked. His vest is also stained with a lot of blood. But despite all that, I just don't see Hyunju killing him. I think this damage is a result of their confrontation, where she likely tossed him aside and his glasses flew off during the scuffle. This image feels like it was taken right after that moment. I believe that young Sik ends up killing a different player later, and that's why his vest is soaked in blood. But I don't think he would have enough time to find a safe room, and he won't survive this game. This is why, in Junja's mind, Hyunju would be the reason why her son died. Now let's talk about the two players behind Hyunju in that same scene. We previously saw the shaman lady with her group of followers, so it's reasonable to assume the blue players have formed alliances to improve their survival odds. Based on interactions so far, I think Junhi, Daeho, and Gyeomja are the most likely candidates to team up with Hyunju. But we can rule out Gyeomja. If this is young Sik, she wouldn't just stand back while her son is being thrown around. And there's no way player 007 would attack his own mother. If we zoom in on the photo, we can actually see the head of one of the players. And it does resemble Junhi. Her posture also looks concerning, like she's in pain. She's crouched down, possibly holding her stomach, and the other player appears to be helping her. That doesn't look like someone who's just hiding. It looks like something has gone wrong with her pregnancy. Could the other player be Daeho? Possibly. But later in the trailer, he's seen alone, which adds a layer of uncertainty. We know Hyunju and Junhi will survive. So here's what I think happens. Hyunju teams up with Junhi and possibly Daeho. They find a safe room first and let Junhi escape there. After that, Hyunju and Daeho split up due to the time pressure. Hyunju finds the correct door, while Daeho ends up opening a trapdoor. I believe Daeho's death is actually foreshadowed in the trailer. In the scene where the blue players are entering the game, we see writing and a skeleton drawn on the wall. Thanks to Andruxi's translation, the writing above the skeleton reads, "Skeleton get out," and the writing below says Daibo, and that looks a lot like Daeho's name. The drawing is clearly done by a child, which supports the theory that Daibo is a childlike misspelling of Daeho. The skeleton symbolizes death, and this creepy, childlike graffiti could be a direct nod to his fate. After this game, there are no signs of Daeho, not even a silhouette in the background, so unfortunately, I think he doesn't make it. Now regarding the voice that says, "I'll help you," I don't think that line actually belongs to this moment. Netflix loves to mislead us in trailers, and it's pretty common for them to overlay dialogue from one scene onto footage from another. I'm not great at voice recognition, but to me, it sounds like Mayungi. Still, I don't think he says those words to Daeho. I think he says them to Junhi. Remember, she gives up before even trying in the 5th game, and Mayungi is the one encouraging her to keep going. So yeah, I believe he says, "I'll help you" to Junhi right before the 2-doll game. Continuing with Hyunju, this isn't the only fight she goes through. In the scene where she finds the door, and in another one shortly after, we can see she has blood on her face. However, in the fighting scene before that, her face is still clean. This makes me think she struggles with another intense fight after that moment, probably right before she reaches the safe door. Or maybe she did kill Young-sik there, and this is why she got blood on her face. Let me know your thoughts about this in the comments. Now here's something I really didn't want to accept, but I think the evidence is too strong to ignore. It looks like the red players are going to have knives. Even though Netflix was very careful not to show any red players' hands, except in two specific scenes, the fight sequence with Hyunju and the one featuring Minsu, and in both of those, they don't appear to have any weapons. Still, the amount of blood shown in this game is just too much. The red team definitely has some kind of weapon capable of causing those massive blood splatters. Let's take a look at the art wall. I thought that knife-shaped symbol on the wall is likely just symbolic, representing the hunter team, just like the keyhole represents the defender team. If the wall symbols actually reflected the objects the players receive, then the blue team's icon should be a key, not a keyhole. So it's more likely that the artwork is meant to convey the goal of the item inside the box, not the item itself. But then, what purpose does a knife serve in this scenario, if not as a killing tool? Here's what I think happened. Minsu may have lost his knife, or someone from the red team, possibly Namgyu, stole it from him to dual wield. I mean, just look at his face. That evil smile says a lot. I also believe Young-sik lost his knife during the fight with Hyunju. Given her military background, it wouldn't be hard for her to disarm him and dominate in a physical confrontation. Young-sik doesn't exactly strike me as the fighting type, or someone with high street IQ. So yeah, I believe the red team did receive knives, and these two simply lost theirs. But we'll see how it all plays out. Maybe that's why Gyumja switched teams with her son. She felt safer as a prey because she had the hidden knife, and an attacker wouldn't expect that a blue player would hold a knife as well. He would feel confident because an old lady is an easy prey, and they would let their guard down. Now moving on, it's kind of amusing that Netflix actually included the leaked footage in the trailer. I almost got my channel banned for showing it. But the important takeaway here is that blue keys aren't universal. There are doors that simply don't open. That can mean one of two things. Either each key is unique and only works on a specific door, or some doors are flat-out traps and were never meant to open. We also see Seonyo angrily smashing into a door that refuses to open, which adds more weight to this theory. Next up, the mother and son duo. We see them just before the game starts, and Gyumja is wearing a red vest here. I believe the teaser photo was taken from this exact moment. This is likely when they switch teams. I imagine the conversation going something like this. Gyumja tells her son to change teams because she has the hidden knife and stands a better chance of surviving. He agrees. And that's why we later see Gyumja in a blue vest at the beginning of the video. Also, it would be very hard for the old lady to overpower another player, even if he would have a knife, so it would be much safer for her to play a defensive role here. Also, it makes perfect sense that team swapping can only happen before the game starts. If you look closely, there are multiple vests of each color, and I'm sure the guards bring a red and blue vest for every player number. After all, they wouldn't have known in advance which player would end up on which team, so they had to prepare for every possibility. Another player who clearly swaps vests is player 222. Now it all makes sense. From the teaser, we saw Mayungi initially on the blue team, but later wearing a red vest. Many assumed he switched teams to be near Junhi, who was shown picking a red ball, or that he swapped vests during the game. But now we see Junhi wearing a blue vest, which confirms it. Myungi must have traded vests with her. I imagine it played out like this. After each player received a ball and their box, the guard explained the rules. Then, he gave them one opportunity to switch teams. Hearing the rules, Junhi realizes she probably can't overpower a blue player to take their key, so Mayungi offers to switch with her. I'm sure other players made similar decisions before the game began. And even though Junhi is on the blue team, Her journey through the maze hasn't been easy. We can see a pretty big bruise on her cheek, which tells us she's been through a lot. But at least we know she's safe. For now. Finally, I want to talk about this shot of Minsu, clearly terrified and possibly begging for his life. If we compare this scene to one from the teaser, it looks like they take place in the same room. There's this blue-toned background, and if you zoom in on the tulip, it closely resembles the brown one we saw before. This leads me to believe the two scenes are connected, and this is the turning point for Minsu's character. I actually speculated this in a previous video, that Minsu wouldn't have a redemption arc, but instead take a darker path and become more of an antagonist than a hero. If Hwang Dong-hyuk had intended for Minsu to be a hero, the moment to prove it was when Saemi was attacked. He didn't step in. That was the opportunity, and it passed. So I don't see him turning heroic later. If anything, this scene is the beginning of his descent. Also, Hwang stated that this season would explore the darkest corners of human nature, and I believe Minsu is the perfect character to reflect that. From what we've seen so far, it's clear that Minsu is placed in a kill or be killed situation. There's no middle ground, and ultimately, he survives. But the act of killing someone will fundamentally change him, pushing him toward much darker and more cunning behavior later in the show. Trust me, if you hated him for not protecting Saemi, what comes next will be 10 times worse. Another shot that seems to happen around the same time is made up of two short sequences, one featuring player 333 and the other player 235. If we look closely at the room's design, the themes match perfectly. I believe we're going to see a confrontation between these two, and Mayungi will likely try to get player 235's key. However, I think he'll fail. We're shown two different scenes with MG Coin where he has blood on his face, and if we compare them, the backgrounds don't match. That tells me the player he kills won't be 235, but someone else, and it will likely happen in a different room with a cloudy or foggy design. Based on everything we've seen in the teaser and trailer, we can piece together a rough outline of this game's mechanics. Before the game begins, players are split into two teams based on the ball they draw. Once the rules are explained, players are allowed to swap teams. Each team receives a box. Blue team gets a key, while the red team get a knife. All blue players seem to start from the same central point, while red players begin isolated, each in a separate room. The goal for the blue team is to find the correct door that leads to safety. The maze appears to have multiple levels, and most doors are traps, either locked or leading to nowhere, like a 3-meter drop. As for the red team, I believe their objective is to obtain a key from a blue player and either escape through the same safe door or perhaps return to their original room. Something along those lines. Now, about the theory that there could be multiple rounds of this game, I don't think that's the case. I believe we'll only see one round and that it'll last around 30 minutes, similar to the Marble game, since both are the fourth game in their respective seasons. Why only one round? It comes down to the set design. The entire structure is massive and intricately built. It wouldn't make sense to reset the stage after each round, especially if the goal is to find a secret room. If players survived and went through a second round, they'd already know the location of the safe room, which would defeat the purpose of the game. Everyone, red and blue, would just rush to the safe zone, and the game would be pointless. And if you thought the game itself was the most intriguing part, you're mistaken. It's what happens after the game that holds some of the most revealing and emotional content. And trust me, you'll be amazed by what I found. If you've been watching this far and enjoying the breakdown, please consider subscribing to my channel and giving this video a like and a comment. It really helps with the channel's growth. Let's dive into what happens in the dorms, starting with the aftermath of the rebellion. We see a broken, furious Gihun questioning why he was even spared. I came across a comment that really made me laugh. YouTuber Lovely Bentley wrote, 456 has so much plot armor that he wants to die and can't. But jokes aside, this is one of the most devastating moments for Gihun. Just look at him, grabbing the guard's arm and literally pulling the gun toward his own head. He's emotionally destroyed. Now let's take a deeper look into Gihun's character. Hwang himself said, Gihun goes through the most dramatic transformation in terms of character arc. And that seems absolutely true here. He watched nearly 800 people die in front of him. He lost his best friend and his childhood friend. He won the game, only to come home and find his mother dead. On top of that, his daughter moved to the US with his ex-wife. What reason does he have left to live? He may have won 45.6 billion won, but he ended up more depressed than when he was drowning in debt. This is Hwang's way of telling us, money doesn't buy happiness. No matter how much you win, it means nothing without people to share it with. What truly matters are your family, your friends, and the experiences you create with them. Squid Game has always been a critique of modern capitalism, and this season continues that theme. It's a commentary on the futility of sacrificing everything for wealth. In today's corporate world, employees often work double shifts just to climb the ladder, only to find themselves alone at the top. No family, no joy, just endless work. Gihun's entire motivation, the one thing that kept him going, was his desire to stop the games. But after the failed rebellion, I think that fire inside him dies too. He finally realizes there's nothing more he can do. He tried 4 different plans, and every single one failed. On top of that, he keeps watching people abandon their humanity for a shot at the prize money, breaking him even further. That's why I believe there's a very real chance Gihun might actually join the organization. If you can't beat them, join them. But we'll come back to that theory later. Ever since seeing the teaser, I kept wondering, how did Gihun end up cuffed to the bed? Because we also see him being delivered in a coffin, like a morbid Uber Eats delivery, and it's Hyunju who opens it. I didn't think the guards would just let a player open the coffin, see who's inside, and then calmly step aside so they could handcuff him. But now it makes sense. He was restrained for one reason only. It was the only way to stop him from attacking the guards without having to kill him. In that same series of scenes, we witness yet another moment showing Daiho's PTSD. Watch how he flinches when Gihun starts yelling and a guard points a gun at him. I honestly don't understand how some people still think he faked it. That reaction was raw. We have another picture match, and is this one with Gihun taken by the guards? Many speculated that this line would be part of a game, but nope. It's just the line who divided the player who voted to continue the game. Now let's talk about the mysterious silhouette shown in the photo teaser. I originally thought it was Daeho, or maybe Namgyu, who was showing up to mock Gihun after the failed rebellion. Turns out I was wrong. It was the shaman lady. And yes, she does come to mock him. I believe she says something like, "All your actions were meaningless. You can't escape fate, and because of you, many people died." Remember how Hwang said Gihun would go through the most dramatic change? Well, we see it here. Look at him, no hesitation, straight for the kill. Season 1, Gihun could never. But this new Gihun, he's done with the games, he's done with hope, and he's completely done with people's bullshit. If the teaser gave us a glimpse of Gumja crying, the trailer gave us the reason why. This image from Netflix's official account says it all. Gumja staring at Hyunju with this cold, vengeful look. You can almost hear her saying, "If my son had to die, then all of you are going to die too." Maybe Gumja heard about the confrontation between her son and Hyunju, and deep inside, she blamed player 120 for his death. But here's where things get even more interesting. In the trailer, we're shown a close-up of an old hand pressing the O button. And who's the oldest person still alive in Squid Game? Exactly, Gumja. Here's a clip of her playing gongi, and when you compare her hands to the one on the button, they match. The same wrinkles, the same nail shape. Some fans think this could be player 100, but I don't buy that. Player 100's hand looks more masculine, less aged. This hand is clearly more feminine, and it fits Gyeomja perfectly. Just look at her expression. Pure judgment, pure devastation. She told her son in season 2, "If you were to die, I wouldn't have anything left to live for." I think that was a clear piece of foreshadowing for Young-sik's death in Season 3. But one thing still puzzles me. In the trailer, we see her begging for the games to stop. If you pause at the right moment, you'll catch the voting board. 9 people voted to continue and 3 against. A total of 12 players. So here's the question. How did we get here? Why would she vote O after begging for the games to end? Let's break it down. There are still 2 more voting rounds, one after the 4th game and another after the 5th. If this theory holds up, then either she survives both games or the vote after the 4th game ends in a tie and is repeated the next day. That could explain why she switches her vote. Maybe she realizes something. Maybe here is when she learned about Hyunju altercation. Maybe she's forced to. Either way, this vote, this moment, might be the emotional breaking point for her, and possibly for us too. Next, we have that intense moment with the guards counting from 1 to 5. My thoughts? I think it's a threat. The players are refusing to participate in the next game, and the guards are trying to force them. Don't forget, the consent form clearly states that once the games begin, players cannot quit. Anyone who refuses to continue is eliminated. I believe the guard starts counting to 5 as a final warning. Once he hits 5, every player who isn't lined up at the exit will be executed. At first, I assumed this was part of a voting scene, mainly because of the lighting, but the more I think about it, the less that makes sense. If the players wanted to stop playing, they'd vote accordingly. There's no reason to threaten them during a vote. The countdown only makes sense if players are refusing to move and the guards are enforcing the rules. We also see another emotional moment with In-ho, the frontman, holding back tears while staring at the screen. This has to be important. They've shown a version of this scene every time they promote Season 3. So why is he so emotional? Could he have had a change of heart? Did he spot his brother on the screen and realize it would die this time for real? Or maybe something happened with Junhi's baby and it reminded him of his own unborn child. We don't know for sure, but I'm convinced this will play a major role in the final season. Hwang Dong-hyuk even confirmed it. You heard the baby crying in the trailer, so people can expect that there could be a baby. This baby plays a very important role in Season 3, not just for Junhi, but for the fate of everyone inside. You can look forward to that. So maybe all these emotional scenes with the frontman are connected to the baby storyline. We also get a quick shot of Junho and Noel, and even though they aren't seen together in the same frame, I'm convinced they've teamed up. With Noel's help, Junho could actually make his way through the Squid Game maze undetected. But how is Junho able to walk around the base so freely? We know the facility has incredibly tight security, surveillance cameras everywhere, armed guards, and highly restricted areas. So how is it even possible? Well, here's what I think happened. In the trailer, we're shown several sequences featuring guards. At first glance, they might seem random, but I don't think Netflix included those shots without a reason. I believe that in those sequences, Junho and Noel are actually disguised as guards. Think about it. Why else would Netflix highlight those particular moments? We see an elevator that strongly resembles the one used during the tug-of-war game in Season 1. My guess is that this lift is used to transport people between the underground base and the outside world. Since the entire compound is hidden below ground, this elevator would be the most practical way for guards to travel in and out. And I believe this is where Junho and Noel make their move. Here's my theory. After escaping through the ventilation system, Noel ends up outside, possibly on a remote beach. That's where he reunites with Junho, right at the moment that this specific photo was taken. They decide to team up and infiltrate the base together. Not long after, they spot a pair of guards on patrol, ambush them, and take their uniforms. This is how they manage to re-enter the facility without raising suspicion. Now, why would this plan actually work? Because Noel knows all the protocols. He's a former insider, so he'd easily blend in. And even if someone accidentally saw their faces, it wouldn't necessarily be a problem. As we learned in Season 2, the Triangle Guards don't know each other's identities. Remember when Noel interfered with the organ smuggling operation? One of the guards attacking her said something along the lines of, "It's too bad you're so pretty." That line tells us they had no clue who she was until they got a good look at her. So, to sum it up, Junho and Noel infiltrate the base by disguising themselves as guards, using the elevator to enter from the outside. Thanks to Noel's insider knowledge and the anonymity among the lower-ranked guards, they're able to move around without setting off any alarms. Now let's talk more about Noel. We already knew from the teaser that she would turn against the organization. Netflix even released 2 more photos of her. In one of them, she's wearing the triangle guard mask and talking to player 246. I believe this is the moment she tells him that she knows who he is, that she'll protect him and his daughter. He just has to trust her. Gyeong-seok agrees because he doesn't have much choice. He's then transported to the organ smugglers, and Noel plans to help him escape from there. But ultimately, the plan fails. We see a shot of Noel pointing a gun at someone, and I believe this takes place in the operation room. That trolley in the background is full of medical supplies, and the sandstone walls match the ones from the organ trafficking scene in Season 1. Here's what I think happens. The black square guard becomes suspicious after hearing Noel say she'll bring a body. He decides to check it out himself. When he arrives, he sees the confrontation between Noel and the other guards. The whole situation spirals, and in the end, Noel is captured and player 246 is really killed. The photo of her cuffed by the bed likely happens right after this whole incident. We already saw in the teaser that she eventually escapes, which would make perfect sense for her to team up with Junho. But here's the twist. Junho is seen alone in the trailer, so maybe he really is the only survivor of that infiltration team. There's another frame that caught my attention, one showing the VIPs at the dinner table, eating while watching the players prepare for a new vote. If you zoom in, you can see the guards waiting and the voting machine set up again. It confirms that the games and the manipulation are far from over. And I believe this voting scene took place before the final game, because we don't see any players on the screens, meaning they are too few to be spotted. But in my opinion, the 2 most important frames are these: the countdown clock hitting 0 and the frontman standing in the main room. Why? Because I believe that countdown is from the final Squid Game. Look at the dark background. It doesn't match the first 2 games we've already seen. In the 4th game, the countdown was on the maze wall. In the doll game, we saw no such background. So this clock, it's from the last game. And we've had plenty of hints that the final game is happening. Remember the teaser where guards enter a room carrying a box identical to the one from Season 1? The one where finalists received their suits before the final round? That was the first clue. Then there's the shot of the VIP standing, with a background that looks just like the one from the original final game. And finally, the room where Junho appear. That's the same one. You can tell by the square pattern on the wall. It seems like Junho keeps chasing the VIPs, but always shows up too late. The room is empty every time. But here's something interesting. If we zoom in on the table in the corner, we see 3 pieces of cake shaped like the Squid Game logo, which might actually mean Junho didn't arrive too late this time. He was too early. The VIPs haven't even touched the cake yet. The final game is coming, and Junho is this close to catching them in the act. Moving on. Based on those 2 hints, we already knew the final game was coming. Now the trailer confirms it. We also have confirmation that Gihun is one of the finalists, but I don't think that's a surprise. What is surprising is this scene right here. Look closely. Do you notice anything strange? When I first saw the trailer, I overlooked this part and thought it was just a random shot of the frontman in the control room. But after watching it frame by frame, I realized that all the screens are shut down, the player tiles are closed, and no other guards are present. Compared to another scene in the trailer where all the screens are on and guards are at their computers, this scene looks very odd. Did you watch my video about all the darkest theories that could happen in Squid Game Season 3? In that video, I theorized that the games won't stop. And guess what? I think this is exactly what's happening here. I believe this frame happens after the game has concluded, and the frontman is checking the control room one last time before closing the base. That's why nothing is turned on. Or maybe it's just a flashback from the first time In-ho was the frontman. In an interview, Dong-hyuk, the creator, was careful not to spoil how it all ends for Gihun and the other players, but he promises that Season 3 is indeed a finale that attempts to deliver an inspiring message. He has always warned us that this series would be the darkest one ever created, so this fits the narrative, right? It also aligns with his style. Whether we like it or not, this is the sad truth about the society we live in. The rich always escape without paying any consequences, and the only ones suffering are the working class. This has been true for centuries. It's nothing new, but this time, the gap is too large to ignore. We see examples like this in the media every day. The most recent one is P. Diddy and his parties. The conclusion? No one knows. It was the most talked about topic for about a week, and now it's dead. No one talks about it anymore. Unfortunately, the same thing will happen in the Squid Game world. The elite will not be defeated. Maybe Gihun will somehow expose the games, but even so, there will be no repercussions for the VIPs. I think the inspiring message Huang tries to deliver is that there will always be evil in this world, and there will always be those who want to take advantage of the weak and prey on them. But we need to be more like Gihun. No matter the difficulties and no matter what happened in his life, he still chose not to be part of this corrupt system and decided to fight against the evil. Unfortunately, he failed. But if even a small part of this system can create so much damage, imagine what would happen if more people united against it. Maybe then, a true revolution could happen. As individuals, we are weak, but as a group, we gain enough power to threaten even the world elite. Even if this isn't the ending I want to see, I'm preparing for this kind of outcome because, let's be honest, as much as we want a happy ending, with Gihun reunited with his daughter, or Junhi and Myung-gi surviving to raise their baby together, it's not going to happen. This is Squid Game, not Disney. I want to make a small parenthesis here about why it wasn't such a good idea to cast popular characters into the show, especially K-pop idols. The audience following those idols automatically follows the show, and most of their fans are teenagers. I don't want to be mean, but this is not a kids' show. I've received comments from people who are 9 years old, 12 years old, even 5. What could they possibly understand from this show? Honestly, they're only watching because their idol is in it, and they want to see the grotesque games. That's it. This is why the fandom dropped hard, and people started believing all kinds of crazy theories, like Thanos being alive, or Jack and Jill as the next game, and so on. This is why I'm saying, Squid Game won't have a happy ending. It was never supposed to be happy. Season 1 did not have a happy ending. Gihun lived at the expense of everyone else's lives, and what did he win in the end? Nothing. His mother died, his daughter moved to another country, and he was depressed even with 45.6 billion won in his bank account. And to top it all off, he found out the games are still going on. I don't know about you, but in my opinion, that's not a happy ending, and the director told us this season would be even darker than that, so yes, you should prepare for the worst. Now, the scene we've all been waiting for, In-ho revealing himself as the frontman. But here's the catch. In-ho wouldn't reveal that, at least not like this. Netflix loves to mess with us, and this is textbook misdirection. Think about it. This is one of the biggest twists in the entire series. Do you really think they'd spoil that in a trailer? Let's break this down. In the trailer, we hear In-ho say,
아직도 사람을 믿나?
"Do you still have faith in people?" But if you look closely, his lips aren't even moving. This is another classic case of Netflix pairing audio from one scene with visuals from a completely different one. The moment where In-ho removes his mask, that's likely not the same moment he's talking to Gihun. At first, I thought this scene was taken after the final game, Gihun winning again, sacrificing even more people he cares about, only to discover that In-ho had orchestrated everything from the shadows. But now I think otherwise. In a released photo from Netflix, we see a similar scene where Inho is wearing a tuxedo and meeting with a VIP. This image is from Inho's past, back when he was player 132 and won the games. The VIP he's meeting is most likely Il-nam, based on the shape of the mask and the fact that the two seem to grow somewhat close afterward. I believe Inho used the same process Il-nam used on him to make Gihun turn into the Frontman. I also think we'll get an entire episode, or at least a large portion of one, dedicated to Inho's backstory. The flashbacks would likely be triggered when the two brothers finally reunite. There's even a photo of Junho looking at an invitation card, and I believe that image is pulled straight from a Frontman flashback sequence. Now, why is Inho so obsessed with Gihun? Throughout Season 2, we've seen this obsession. Inho is constantly watching, constantly trying to prove his point. But why the obsession? It's not because the organization needs another Frontman. No, it goes deeper. It's because Gihun has gone through everything Inho went through and still managed to hold on to his faith in humanity. That's what drives the Frontman insane. Gihun is the version of himself who didn't give up. He's a living mirror, showing Inho what he could have been if he had chosen a different path. That's why Inho is so desperate to make Gihun give up his humanity. He's literally obsessed. Here's what Lee Byung-hun, the actor who plays Inho, said during a Q&A when asked, "Why is the Frontman so obsessed with Gihun?" He replied, "Gihun came out as the winner of Squid Game, as did the Frontman in the past. However, Gihun decided to come back to dismantle the system. And so, in the Frontman's eyes, watching Gihun make a decision like that, I think he saw a little bit of himself in Gihun." Now let's talk about this specific scene. At first, I thought it took place after the final game, but after a closer look, I'm convinced it happens before the final round. Why? Because in another official photo, we see a shot of Gihun at the final dinner, and in the scene where he's in the Frontman's quarters, he has the exact same bruise on his forehead. His face is clean, his tuxedo is still neat. There's no way this is after the final game. He hasn't been through the bloodbath yet. And here's a major find, something that completely changes how we interpret this scene. At first glance, the trailer makes it look like we're watching a single, continuous sequence. Gihun walks into the Frontman's chamber, Inho removes his mask, and Gihun steps forward. Simple, right? But this is Netflix we're talking about. They've deliberately edited these clips to make them appear connected, when in reality, they're pulled from 3 completely different moments. Let's break it down. In the first shot, we see Gihun stepping out of the elevator and into the Frontman's room. Then we get a brief shot of Inho taking off his mask. And finally, there's a close-up of Gihun walking toward the center of the room, looking intense and focused. But here's the catch. In the first shot, Gihun is clearly entering the room. In the close-up, he's actually leaving it. Even though the second shot is zoomed in and centered on Gihun's face, if this were the same moment from when he stepped off the elevator, we would still see part of the elevator behind him. And guess what? I zoomed in on that frame 600%, and the elevator door is still visible in the background. But in the second, tighter shot, the elevator is completely gone. The only visible background elements are those dark, segmented spaces we see on the opposite side of the room, the same ones shown when Gihun exits to confront the Frontman. So what does this mean? Netflix has pieced together footage from different points in the episode to mislead us. This isn't one continuous moment, it's 3 separate ones. Gihun enters the room, something happens off-screen, and later he walks back out with a completely different expression. That subtle switch in background details confirms that these are separate scenes, edited together to make us think the mask reveal happens right then and there. But in reality, it's all part of the misdirection. So here's what I think actually happens. This scene takes place before the final game. The Frontman invites Gihun to a private meeting and proposes a bet, just like Il-nam did to him in the first season. A challenge to prove that humanity still exists. The Frontman tells Gihun that if he manages to win the games again, he'll reveal everything: his identity, the truth behind the organization, all of it. Look at Gihun's face when he arrives, worried, cautious, confused. And look at his face when he leaves, focused, determined. That's not someone who just had his world shattered. If Inho had revealed himself right there, Gihun wouldn't be walking away calmly. Based on how he reacted to the shaman lady mocking him in the dorm, Gihun would have tried to kill the frontman on the spot. We can see that the guard is not walking outside the elevator, so I believe they are alone in that room. However, Gihun wouldn't attack the frontman. We saw a similar scenario in the first episode of Season 2, when Gihun agreed to play Russian roulette with the salesman. Despite him holding the gun, Gihun chose to play the game. He didn't use the gun to kill the salesman. Gihun had already refused to be part of the system and would do everything he could to prove his point to the organization. This is why I don't think he would attack the frontman, even if they were alone in a room. But if Gihun were to learn that Inho is the frontman, I believe he would abandon all rational thought and act on impulse. We saw a similar parallel in Season 1 when he was ready to kill Ilnam. Despite Ilnam only having a few hours left to live, Gihun was prepared to kill him in that moment. I still believe that Inho would reveal himself to Gihun. I speculated earlier in this video that the games wouldn't end, so I believe Gihun would accept the frontman's bet and eventually win this year as well. But something twisted would happen in that game. He'd be ready to give up, but something very dark would unfold, something that would make him question himself and the nature of humanity. He would witness the ultimate betrayal, and in that moment, he'd act on impulse and survive the game. After it ends, Gihun would receive his prize, all of his questions would be answered, and the big revelation would come. Inho is the front man. I believe that's what would happen. When Inho speaks those words,
아직도 사람을 믿나? 아직도 사람을 믿나?
we can hear that it's not the typical distorted voice he uses with the mask. It's clear, meaning he's speaking directly to Gihun. At that point, I don't think Gihun would attack Inho. His will would be shattered, and he would decide to listen to what the front man has to say. Would Gihun lose all hope and accept whatever offer Inho proposes? That's a question for Season 3. But yeah, this is what I believe will truly happen here. Moving next with the analyze. In another short sequence, we hear Gihun ask desperately, "What are you doing?" And a voice responds, "What do you think I'm doing? I'm playing the game." The interesting part here is the editing. Gihun's line happens during the doll game. We can tell by the background and wooden fencing, but the response is overlaid with a shot from the fourth game. That scene with player 202 is just a throw-in. It's not where the voice is actually coming from. The editing is clearly designed to mess with us. A lot of people online are saying the voice belongs to Minsu. I don't know if that's true or not. Personally, I can't really tell the difference, since many of the actors sound similar to me. But others with sharper ears believe it's him, and I think this theory deserves some attention. It would fit with the darker path Minsu's character is taking. At first, I believed this question was addressed to Minsu. I thought Minsu pushed Namgyu over the bridge. We already saw that player 124 was badly injured and crawling on the ground. I thought Minsu finally getting his revenge. His character has changed drastically, and now he's becoming the embodiment of the darker side of human nature. But once I looked closely at the background behind Gihun, everything changed. Based on the wooden fence, we can say for sure that this is on Cheol-Su's side, meaning Gihun had already cleared this game when he said those words. But if that voice belongs to Minsu, that means he also cleared the game and would be one of the finalists. One thing is clear. This moment is not about pushing player 124 to his death, because Namgyu wouldn't reach the safe zone in this game and would die falling over the bridge. So what exactly shocked Gihun so much here? I'm pretty sure the person behind that voice manipulated another player, or straight up pushing him to death, reducing the number of finalists. That's why Gihun received that cold answer, playing the game. It meant he was willing to do whatever it took to maximize his chances of winning the final round. I believe this moment would traumatize him even more, triggering PTSD and reminding him of the time Song-woo killed a dying Saebyok just to ensure the final game would proceed. Hwang wasn't exaggerating when he said this would be the darkest season yet. Now let's take another look at that photo of Gihun at the dinner before the final game. Look at the anger in his eyes. I'm convinced he's staring at the player who said those words and who caused another player's death. And now, the last part, the conversation between Mayungi and Junhi. I'm a little nervous about this scene because Mayungi says the magic words, "We have to get out and live, Junhi. We have to get out." And let's be real, every time a character says something like that in a TV series, they usually don't make it out. It's the moment where the backstory kicks in and ends with their death. But I don't think Squid Game will follow that same predictable stereotype. Mayungi has all the qualities of a finalist, so I don't think he'll die in the 5th game. Junhi, on the other hand, I'm not so sure. The biggest question here is, why does Junhi give up? From what Mayungi says to her, what are you going to do? Just sit here and die? We can infer that she genuinely believes she has no chance of surviving this game. And I think we're supposed to take that line literally. She's sitting on a bench, doing nothing. That confirms just how insanely difficult this 5th game must be. We've already seen a group of players begging and panicking before it even starts. There's another detail I want to point out. Junhi isn't wearing her player jacket, and she has a visible bruise on her cheek. You know where we've seen this combo before? Yep, in the teaser scene where she's crying. Look at it closely, same expression, same teary eyes. I think Junhi dies in this game. I've said it before, and I'll say it again, and I know exactly where this scene is taken from. Let's take another look at the shot from the teaser. Even though the background is very blurred, we can still make out 2 distinct elements on the left. One that appears as a blurred yellow, and below it, what looks like a blurred red. To the right, there's something that resembles a blurred pink shape. This scene fits perfectly if Junhi is standing in front of the doll, just before the game begins. If we zoom in on the bench and the light coming from the window, they closely match the blurred yellow and red shapes. And if we blur this image ourselves, we can see that it aligns surprisingly well. The blurred pink also matches Young-hee's leg. We know she's wearing pink tights. Blurring that part too results in another perfect match. This is why I believe the shot from the teaser shows Junhi's turn to play the game. We saw her almost in tears while sitting on the bench before the game starts, clearly believing she doesn't stand a chance. That's what the crying represents. She knew she was going to die. She believed there was no way she could survive this game. Director Hwang mentioned that aside from Gihun, Myungi goes through the most dramatic character arc in the series, and what better way to set that transformation in motion than by killing off his pregnant ex-girlfriend? That would be the ultimate emotional trigger. There's also some powerful symbolism behind Myungi's line, "Just sit here and die." I think it's a perfect metaphor for life, especially for the players in Squid Game. Life is brutal, it's far from perfect, and at some point you'll be tested. You have 2 choices. You either stay stuck, wallowing in self-pity, or you take charge and try to change your circumstances. It's your life. No one's coming to save you. It all depends on you. If you're in a bad place in life, I hate to say it, but your own actions likely brought you there. And if you're in a good place, then congrats. You made the right choices to get there. That was a long video, but seriously, this trailer was one of the best I've ever seen. They revealed just enough to get you hooked without spoiling anything major. So what are your thoughts? Are you excited, nervous, scared for your favorite characters? Let me know in the comments below.